Oh,
You
yeah,
know Manaus. Manaus is really hot.
I know,
Just,
I know.
just like you remember it.
But it's going to get to 1 degree, so that's good. I wish I'd be there. Oh, I miss it. I miss it so much.
So
And
everyone,
then,
just to introduce, this is Florencia Sangermano. She's part of our team on X Prize, and she is a next level bioacoustic analyst. She handled our analysis, which I think was the greatest part of our date was bioacoustic analysis. So Flor was a genius in this part, and it's a great honor to have her here because I need to learn this a lot also, just like everybody else. So thanks a lot, Flor, to being here. Really, really grateful.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much,
thank you.
Flor. Okay, I think we can already start. I will
Yes.
do a little bit of introduction first, and then we can go to, and also updates as well from Gain Forest, and then we can go to Flor's session. So welcome everybody. This is our monthly community call, and this time it's the January one, and we'll be looking more into bioacoustics data basically, but like a step further because we actually had a session previously on how to deploy, and we actually invited Eman from Oceanus Conservation in the Philippines, who is also in this call today, to kind of like share his experience with deploying the AudioMoth in Caguait, which is an area in the Philippines, like a mangrove area basically. So this time around, we're very happy to actually to have you here, Flor, to know more about how to analyze, because I also want to learn, and we actually have a few community partners here who actually have collected some data using their own audio mod, and they would also want to learn more on how to prepare the data and how to analyze it. Right. Okay. I think we can start with, like a very simple house rules. Please keep your microphone muted if you're not speaking, and then feel free to turn on your camera to say hi, because it's like a monthly thing, so it's not every day that I can see your face. So please, if you can open your camera, feel free to do so and get involved, ask questions, and also maybe you can write in the chat if you cannot talk or unmute yourself, but we can make this session interactive basically. Right. Okay. So, where are you joining us from? Please write in the chat box, because I believe people are from different time zone. There's like good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So, yes, Manaus, the Philippines, Sophia in NYC, right? Um, I'm in Malaysia right now.
Nice, Sophia. Sophia, nice.
Yes. So it's 9 p.m. for those in the Southeast Asia region, 9 or 10 or 8, right? Okay, Edward in Kenya. Hello. Right. Okay. Cool, cool. Keep it coming. You can see Sakwa from Uganda. Right. Keep it coming. You can just write in the chat box. And then, as usual, quick vibe check. How do you feel today? One, two, three, four. There are numbers here. So which one are you? Some of us, I guess, it's already at night, so maybe we're in eight. Okay, Sako is a four. Okay, still the afternoon. Gabriel, as always, a two. Eman two, even though at night. Right. Nina and Sophia at six. Go. Right. Okay, keep it coming. Thank you for sharing. Next, before we start to floor session, I just like to, uh, I guess, do a little bit of updates from Gain Forest. Also, just to mention that this session is recorded. So just a bit of heads up there. So basically, I just like to mention here that of course this is the beginning of the year. I think everyone is actually in the grant writing season and trying to get funding so that we can do our work for the rest of the year. And that's why we at Gain Forest, we just like to mention these three funding opportunities in the Web3 ecosystem that you can actually hop into. So number one, we have Giveth, and then number two, we have Hypersys, which I've briefly mentioned before from our previous community calls. And we also, most of you, I think, already heard about Gitcoin grants. And in fact, last month, we actually had a session where we talk about Gitcoin grants, and we invited two community partners who actually received funding for the very first time through Gitcoin grants. So, yeah. So the first one, Giveth, which I haven't mentioned at all before, but essentially Giveth is like easy, like to simply say it, it's like GoFundMe, but if you are looking, or the donors will be people from a different audience, I guess. So it will be more on from people. The donors would be people from the Web3 ecosystem. But essentially, it's quite similar. So you can create your own account, and then you can create a project. So you can, write nicely your description and all, and how you're going to use the money. And so please, I am opening this opportunity to everyone here. If you are interested to have a Giveth account or add your project on Giveth, you can just contact me. I can teach you step by step from the very, very, very beginning. So don't be afraid. I know that the Web3 ecosystem can be a little bit of intimidating, and that's why I'm here to help you. And you will need a MetaMask wallet to be able to create a project. So it's quite similar to Gitcoin in that sense, because you have to have a MetaMask wallet to be able to actually, get into it. So I can teach you on how to create a MetaMask wallet. So don't worry. So feel free to contact me if you are interested with Giveth. And if you actually sign in, if you sign up and you actually create your own project, you'll be eligible basically to get your first donation from Gainforest. So that's exciting. And I think Giveth has also a lot of nice tutorial videos. So it's quite easy that you can learn step by step from their website. And in addition, you can also contact me, so we can do like a meeting like this where you can do it on your like screen share, and then I can teach you step by step basically. So this is Giveth. And then secondly, which I have mentioned from previous community calls, which is regarding the hypercerts, which basically, if people who haven't heard of it yet, it's basically a digital certificates that basically show what you have done. In this case of us, probably it's something conservation or restoration related. And with hypercerts, people can actually buy your impact or buy a portion of your hypercerts. So there is a that you can get financial support from people, especially those in the Web3 ecosystem. And also it's a clear impact record of what you have done. For example, you have planted 300 trees in a certain area, for example, right? So there is a clear impact record there. And how it works. So basically, right. So just a little bit of update in terms of hypersets. In addition to whatever I've told you before, we have actually we have buyers who are interested, and we now have like a $18,000 pool of money, which is the first batch, and it will be distributed to a lot of different eco projects, conservation or restoration related projects. But those who create hyperset through Green Forest will be eligible to get a portion of this money. So please contact me by this week actually. So and I will give you like a form that you will need to go through. Basically, we need this info, and again, anything Web3, you will need a MetaMask wallet, which I can teach you how to do it. And we need all this info, like what is your impact, your logo and your banner image, for example, and then what is the impact that you have done, right? So please, anyone who are interested, please reach out to me by this week. I'm already like been discussing with some of you, but it'd be great if we can have more, right? So there will be updates regarding hypercerts, right? I think that's it from me in terms of updates from Gainforest. I will pass the floor to Flor to talk more about how would people analyze their bioacoustics data that they have collected using their AudioMoth. Yeah, to you, Flor.
Hi. Well, thank you very much. So, I see here David on the call, so it's great to see you. I already say hi to Gabriel, and I hope to get to meet some of you a little bit more. I want to start by like mentioning that I have a presentation from a workshop that I gave, but I want to know first a little bit more of what do you want to do with the data, because depending on what you want to do is the process that you're going to be doing. One of the things that I like Gabriel was mentioning is that for our project with X Prize, we were extracting information about birds. So we were processing the data and extracting when the birds called, which birds were calling. But there is another type of analysis that you can be doing, that is extracting the whole soundscape and how active that soundscape is. So most of my work is on the soundscape aspect of it, because I think it gives you a more comprehensive view of the landscape, gives you the whole activity of the landscape, and it allows you to compare across time. But I want to listen a little bit more about where are you working, and what type of data you are collecting, and what is your main objective first.
Right. I think Jaya, are you here? Because I think Jaya from the Ruka Earth from India, they have actually collected some data on the Sundarban mangrove area. Jaya, are you here?
Yeah, hi
Yes.
Flor.
Hi.
So yeah, we did gather a little data from Sundarban forest. So what we did was we just wanted to have a view of the overall biodiversity of the area. So we collected the data at the entire frequency range that the AudioMoth offers. And yeah, we then did try to come up with a few species detection models. Like there are a few open source models like the BirdNet. So we've tried analyzing the data with that. But so BirdNet, it's actually not trained for the Indian species. So it did give a lot of misclassifications because of that.
Yeah. That is very helpful. So one of the objectives that you have is maybe to get a training for BirdNet that will work for your
Mm-hmm.
area. Is that right? Okay, good. So for that, one of the things that you will need is to have experts first, because you can in BirdNet you can create your own classifiers, and
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we were actually working on that only.
Yes, yes, and once you have examples of
Mm-hmm.
the calls that you are interested in identifying, you can extract those as and I don't sorry about this, but like I wasn't like sure that this was going to be a full workshop type of thing, so I don't have like the examples for that, but I have a PowerPoint for more of the soundscape. You can extract the signals, and we can like meet another time, and I can show you how to extract these signals. And what you need is examples. You need about like 100 minimum of examples of calls for the species that you want to identify, as well as other things, so that the classifier doesn't get confused. And BirdNet has an option for training. So what you can do is basically train the BirdNet for the species that are in the location of interest. And that's what I will recommend doing when BirdNet is not working, because for BirdNet, we know that it's very good in North America and Europe. It was good for us
Yeah.
in Brazil, areas that have a lot of training information, in areas that are not so well studied, in areas that maybe there are particular species that you are interested in where they don't get examples. Those are not going to be good, and you have to develop your own. Have you tried that? Have you tried extracting signals from species of interest?
Yeah, we still haven't done that yet. What we are planning to do next is like identify a bunch of signature species
Mhm.
from the area and then maybe gather sample calls for that particular species and then train the have a BirdNet classifiers for that.
Yes, and you can check Senocanto. I'm going to write it. Probably you already
Mm,
did, and that um, for those that Senocanto. That is a website that has, I put it in the chat, it's a website that has a lot of acoustic recordings from species all around the world. So you can check that for examples as well. There is a software that is free. You can get a paid version that has more capabilities, but with the free version, you can also use it to extract signals. That is called Ravenlight. Raven.
Raven light.
Do you know that one? It's,
No, we
it's
did not come across this.
yeah. So they have the Raven Light. Raven is the name of the software. Raven Lite
Mm,
is the free version. Raven Pro allows you to do more things with it, like training BirdNet, for example. But you don't need the Pro version. I think they have licenses for developing countries and researchers that of the Raven Pro that is that are like cheaper or they are for free, because I have colleagues in Argentina that they get Raven Pro for free. That's from Cornell University. It's the same people that develop BirdNet. And it
mm,
allows you to display a recording, select areas of the recordings where it has the birds of interest, and then extract those calls for a classifier like BirdNet. So that is
mm.
where to start, I think, in terms of um, extracting the calls of the species that you are interested in identifying. If you're interested in all the diversity, now it's a little bit more difficult because now you have to extract every single signal or every single call of the species. So
Yeah,
it will require much more involved, like much more work and time to be able to do that, but it's
yeah,
possible.
yeah. I mean, for now, I think the best possible version for us would be to focus on a group of signature species.
Hmm.
Thanks for the insights,
And there it goes, like the
Raven
Raven Pro.
Pro. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so the other way that you can work is with the whole soundscape. Have you tried, like, are you familiar with the soundscape? Have the soundscape concept?
A little bit. Um, so it's kind of like the overall, I guess, the comparison between what type of sounds.
Yep. Yeah. So let me show here. I think I can um, select the window. I have a presentation. Okay. I think you can see my screen now. Um,
Yes.
can you
Yes.
see? Do you see
Yep.
it in presentation form or?
Yeah, it's the presentation.
Okay, wonderful. So this is from a different workshop. So like disregard everything that it says. I'm going to be scrolling. But yes, the soundscapes allow us to understand that whole relationship within an
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem, because the biodiversity that makes sounds is a response of all the ecosystem components, the vegetation, the land use, the climate, and when that climate or vegetation or land use changes, the biodiversity that is in these areas is going to change, and also the sounds. And then we can relate that with other conditions of the ecosystem. So one of the things that the soundscape do is to measure all those sounds in the ecosystem, instead of identifying, for example, one bird or a couple of taxa within the system is trying to look at the whole composition of the acoustic diversity. And as that acoustic
Mm,
diversity changes, we can relate it with the changes that the landscape is experiencing. For example, if you have deforestation, with deforestation, some species are going to be affected. Maybe they are like leaving the area or they're getting locally extinct. And so that sound composition is going to change. And that soundscape that we are measuring is that combination of the sounds from the animals in the area, the sounds from the humans. I'm not sure if you have, if your area is very remote, your anthrophonic component may not be very persistent, and also the sounds of the environment. And when we are
mhm,
working with soundscape, we are mostly interested in this biophony and anthrophony. And when we are working, sorry, with soundscapes for the analysis of ecosystem health. The geophony is an important component because it gives us the abiotic component of this environment. But if we are interested in the health of the ecosystem in terms of the proportion of biophony in the ecosystem, we try to avoid areas or sounds that have high geophony. So the first step in an analysis of soundscapes is to scan your recordings and remove any sounds that either have very high wind that maybe is not very common in forested areas because they are more shaded,
mm, yeah.
but in areas that are wetlands or grasslands, the wind it covers all the other sounds, and also rain. That is more common in forest. So we want to first scan those recordings and remove the geophony so that then we only analyze the biophonies. Um, okay, that's the sounds of the whole system. Um, and then that biophony and anthrophony are related with the quality of the ecosystem. So this is a slide from a project that I did here in Massachusetts where we found that traffic, the artificial illumination, the human edge are affecting the biophonies negatively, and the forest cover, the greenness and the connectivity of the land increase the biophony of the area. It was just a scan like for these slides. Then you can relate that whole composition of biophonies, not individual species, but the whole composition to the quality of habitat. So for example, another thing that we found was that for the biophonies, as the patch or the core habitat quality increase, we get more biophonies. That is expected. What all these things were telling us is that whole composition or that whole quality of the biophonies are related with the composition and the quality of the environment. So we can get a reflection of the quality of the ecosystem in that biophony. Opposite, we get an opposite thing with the anthrophonies, all those sounds from humans. In our case, we were working in an area that is much more urban and suburban. So what we found was that the traffic and the sound from mostly cars were higher in areas that were not related with core habitat, and as the core habitat was a better quality, that meant there were like larger patches with less edges, that sound from humans declined. And I'm going to skip this, but this is basically what we found. We found that that forest connectivity, greenness, and the percent cover had a positive relationship with biodiversity. So, and what we understood from that was that the sounds of the whole soundscape are reflective of the habitat quality. So, I wanted like to mention this because sometimes you don't need, unless you're working with one particular species or you're interested in understanding the whole diversity of the system, if you are interested in the habitat quality and you want to compare quality across size or quality across time, you may not need to identify particular species. You may want to look at a soundscape perspective. And probably you already seen this before in the other workshops that you have, that the soundscape are the result of that. All the animals that are emitting, the transmission environment, and also the reception. And in the reception, in this case, will be the microphones that you're using. And in the case of forest systems, the emissions is on not only birds, but are all the animals that make vocal calls. You can have mammals, you have frogs, you have insects, and the transmission depends on the density of forest. So forests that are very dense will transmit sounds in a different way than forests that are less dense, or even grasslands or wetlands, because the sounds are going to reflect and interact with that transmission environment. And the reception, that is what you were mentioning before, is the sensitivity of your microphone. And so all these things we have to be taken into account when you are analyzing the sounds in your area. And I'm going to skip these sound things because you already probably know this. I'm going to just get to the important components. One of the things that you mentioned is that you are working with the entire frequency range, so measuring from bats all the way, so from ultrasounds all the way to sounds. And one of the things that I found with the AudioMoths is that that capability of recording in the full frequency range is like it's a pro and it's a con at the same time. The pro is that yes, you can like measure all these different sounds. The con is that now your files become very, very large, and the quality sometimes of the sounds at the lower frequency become affected, and that is because what is called the bit depth of the recording is in the not only in this device, but in all the devices, change depending on the amount of frequencies that you use. So if you're interested in a soundscape that is composed by the majority of animals that vocalize in the audible frequency range, and what I recommend is to calibrate or set up the recorders to only record those frequencies. And then you can have maybe a recorder that during the day records in one frequency, and during the night record in the ultrasounds, if you still want that combination of ultrasounds and sounds. And that is something that I learned or we learned during X Prize. We have set up the recorders, some to do the full frequency range, and some in the acoustic frequency range, and it saved a lot of time in the processing. And even when we had only the acoustic range, Burnett was able to work better in identifying a species compared to when we had the full frequency recorded. I'm going to skip this. This is the Nyquist. That is that frequency range that we want. We want a frequency range that is double for the sampling rate, double the maximum frequency that we want to identify. You don't have that issue now because you're doing the full frequency. But if you decide on recording only the audible species, to record species that vocalize up to 20 kilohertz, you need to set up your sampling rate to 40. So you always do double the frequency, and that's because we need 2 points to record the full wave. So that's why we do always double. So if you want it to extract a wave that has 2 peaks, you need 4 samples. So for a wave of a frequency of 2, you need a sampling rate of 4. The more points you have in this curve, the curve will become a better represented. Then that's why the lower frequencies usually get represented better than the higher frequencies. The other thing to consider, and I'm not sure if you have this in your recording, is clipping. Um, and these are all things that I'm mentioning because that can affect the sensitivity or like how well Burnett relates to um, the relates the sound to the AI database to extract species. And please interrupt me at any time, or if I'm saying things that you already know very well, just let me know. But this clipping is something that it's a big problem in audio files. So it can happen if you have species that are calling very close to the microphone, or if you have a drone flying very close to your microphone, or if you have wind. And what it means is that the sound, the microphone gets saturated. The sounds that get into that microphone saturates, and it cannot represent the full wave. So this is, for example, an audio in the blue line that it doesn't have any clipping, and you see that it has variability in the y-axis is the amplitude, so how loud the sounds are, and in the x-axis is the time. And you can see that there is variability of sound amplitude, so it's a bird singing in one of these peaks, and then it's a little bit of silence, and so on. If you increase the sensitivity of your microphone, that is called the gain of the microphone, or if you have maybe a bird that is calling very near it, so it's very loud near the microphone, you get this effect of clipping, and you see that the sound reaches to the top of the sensitivity of the microphone and it clips. And what it happens is that it cannot capture that full wave, and you're not going to be able to identify anything in that area. So clipped audio, you cannot recover that clip audio, and then you're not going to be able to identify a soundscape or a species there. So that is another thing to try or to look for when you are evaluating the quality of the recordings. So it's always good because there are not rules of for this. Every landscape is different. Every soundscape is different. So you have to place your recorders in the field. Maybe let them record for a week or so to calibrate what will be the best gain for the system. If you are finding that you have clipping in your system, it's very, very prevalent. You can decrease the gain when you set up the AudioMoth. And the gain is how the microphone amplifies the signals. And I think the default for AudioMoth is a medium gain, and that it works in most cases, but in some other cases, you may have this, and that's not good. And so, have you besides the extraction of the signals with Burnett, have you looked into the recorders? Have you visualized these recorders? Oh, sorry, I wasn't. There it goes. Yes, Gabriel.
Uh, just some questions that arises from other communities when we're dealing is that, for example, a lot of the projects are related to reforestation. So normally you're trying to prove that reforestation is carrying a biodiversity uplift, or I don't know if the biodiversity actually is increasing with our planting of trees, which is something that we would expect it to happen. In this situation, what would be the best strategy, for example, is to install AudioMoths in a sense of capture landscape sounds, or the indicators are kind of a mix of both. Imagine that I have two AudioMoths it would be a good thing if I position one for landscape, another one for indicators, or this would be a replica. No, what would be the best strategy to prove through AudioMoth that my reforestation is actually working?
Oh yes, in that case, if you're interested, you don't need to have two audio moths.
Mm.
But what you will need is comparing across landscapes. Because
Mm-hmm.
all these soundscapes are relative. So you can track one site over time. So then you can see how that soundscape changed with the passing of time. Or you can compare multiple sites. So for example, for that work in Massachusetts, we have different sites, one that were urban, suburban, rural, forest. So now we were comparing the soundscape across space or across qualities of habitat. But if you have one site and you want to monitor the restoration, you can have the recording. Those are called long-term recordings, where you compare that same site with itself after years of restoration. And what the soundscape will look like. So this is, I don't know if you can see it here. Here, no, sorry, that one. So this is, it's the same forest, and but in different, it's the same habitat or the same ecosystem in different areas within Massachusetts. An area that is urbanized, an area that is more rural, and an area that is more. Oh, I'm still sharing the screen. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I can see it.
And an area that is, well, that is not wild in Massachusetts, but an area that is less urbanized. Uh, so here we have that quality of habitat separated across the space, but you will expect that maybe if you have an area that you're restoring, you start like this, maybe not urban, but maybe like deforestation, and then you move into more forest and then to a more dense forest. And on the right is the how that soundscape look like for the area that is more intact at the top and less intact at the bottom. This is the recording of the same day at the same time, and you can see how different they are. These areas are maybe, they are all within central Massachusetts. They may be like 4 kilometers away, 4 or 5 kilometers away. They're very, very close to each other. So it's not a change in the ecosystem, it's not a change in the climate. What you are seeing is the change of that quality. So imagine doing this, but imagine doing this over time. So you start the project of restoration and you set the acoustic recorders and you monitor like in like 1 year, every year, maybe during the peak of the diversity, when the diversity is calling. Yes, Gabriel.
Again, so following up on this, two questions. One, there's a trade-off on battery power when we put something to get a greater complexity or something when it's restricted to just one frequency, right? If I'm doing a sampling strategy, how with the landscape, which I think takes more battery, how long would you record for me to get a good sampling? Like I can take it for 5 days or sampling to the woods through a landscape that is so getting the whole landscape.
Yes, yeah. So it's uh, the acoustic discipline is starting. So they are, the rules that are there are maybe for the areas in the world that have been sampled the most. So one study said that you need 180 hours. It's like it's a precise 180 hours to characterize the complexity of that soundscape. Um, so there was one study that said that for what I recommend doing is like the more variability you have in your system, the more hours you need to capture that variability. That's so ecosystems that are more stable may not need so many hours of recordings, but let's say that you're working in mangroves. I think you're doing this. You're working in this mangrove forest. They are usually tropical areas, so they are quite stable. What you first need to do is to identify when is the peak of your signals. When is your ecosystem at its peak of activity? So to do that, maybe you can have recordings uh, 5 minutes every hour for a whole year. So that is, so you have a not recording the whole day, not recording the whole year, but you have like 5 minutes every hour. So then you say, well, in a 5 minutes every hour, you can say when is the peak, so which hour is the peak of activity, but also which month has the peak of activity. And that will allow that will save energy in the recording, and that is maybe you don't even need 5 minutes, maybe you need like 2 or 3 minutes. um, that's how we play around with it. After you decide, okay, in my case, July is the peak, and I said, during July, the peak of activity happens in the morning between 6 and 8 a.m. So now you say, well, to measure the complexity of my soundscape, I'm going to use that time period. If you're interested in like in my area, is also you have another peak in the afternoon. So we say, well, you can set up your recordings to do the morning and the afternoon. But it's an important component of you, well, you can have another time at night. So first of all is first to identify what times of the day and during which part of the year you're going to be doing the monitoring. Because sometimes, at least in our area, recording in the winter doesn't make sense. It's very quiet. Yes, you have some species. Now in January, we have all the coyotes mating. So it's a beautiful soundscape, but it's just once every like 3 days you can hear something. So to optimize your recordings. And once you determine that, now you can do the deployment. And the key thing is to have the same parameters in all the on all the devices, because the study that you're going to be doing is comparative. You're not going to be able to compare sites that are with different settings. You need to have everything kind of like calibrated, even like at the not only the time but also the date and the range of frequencies that you're using, and the gain. That gain is very, very important.
Perfect. It's just the last one, I swear. So if I'm in a landscape analysis, I can see visually through your slide that there's more complexity on area that's more green, for
Yeah.
example. I'm not identifying which species are there, but I can, by visually, without
Yeah.
identifying, see that there's my complexity there. So for me to establish the time and the day which I'm going to put the AudioMoth, I don't need to have a previous identification of species. I can only check by the visual like frequency increasing to say, look, this is where I'm going to put.
Yeah.
And then after this, I can focus on identifying whatever I'm trying to identify.
Yes, and there are, and I wanted to see here, these are indices that can be used. So you can do it as a visual inspection, but visually sometimes it's much harder. So the first thing that you will need to do is, after you do these recordings, you first have to remove the recordings that have rain. And because the rain is going to affect that complexity. Like if this day will be raining, you will see like those the more pink colors is louder. You're going to see everything loud, and that's not birds, or that's not the biophonies. It's that rain effect. So first you have to go and remove the rain. There is a tool in R called Hard Rain that allows you to do that. It's not really good at the moment, and we are trying to see if it only extracts events of rain that are very, very, very heavy. But it's a start. Otherwise, you have to go visualizing and like you scroll across them, and then when you have a spectrogram, this image that is full of rain, you just exclude it from the analysis. And then there are many indices. Also, you can calculate these indices in R. And I'm happy to send you the code on how to do this. That extracts the complexity of that spectrogram. So for example, one is the acoustic complexity index, and that acoustic complexity index divides this spectrogram in bins of frequency. So from 0 to 1 kilohertz, from 1 kilohertz to 2 kilohertz, and so on and so forth. And you know, when we work in ecology, that we calculate these diversity indices, it does exactly the same way, compared across frequencies and compared across time. So it gives you a measure of complexity of these spectrograms. And there are many different. So for example, the acoustic diversity is also calculating that Shannon diversity index. Evenness, same as we do in ecology, is there one frequency that is very loud and all these other frequencies are quiet? So you have like loudness across many frequencies. So that there are like many. These are like the ones that are the most commonly used. The bioacoustic indices only measures frequencies that are mostly common used by species. Number of peaks is how many frequency peaks you have. So more species, there is something called the acoustic niche hypothesis that says that a species will not vocalize at the same frequency at the same time. So if you have more species or a higher diversity of species, you're going to have more frequency peaks. And all this can be calculated in R. And so with that, you can like run a code, like a loop across all your recordings and get basically a table that tells you for each day and each time the the different measures of acoustic complexity. And then you can plot them. And I don't have my plot here. I don't have my plot here. I have another one. No, this is not the plot for that. But you can plot them and you can see, okay, what time of the year. And then once you identify the time of the year highest acoustic complexity, you can go inside that month, let's say, and say, okay, at what time? And then set up the acoustic recorders based on that. And then repeat that every year.
Perfect. When we have kind of, it's not a ecotonos, like changes in the ecosystem. For example, I have a lake, and then I come to a more flooded area, and then I come to deep forest, as you saw in the Amazon.
Yeah.
Would be a good strategy for us to sample each one of those areas, since there's more specificity with each area. And imagine that for now, it's just imagine that I'm starting right now, and I want to pilot test, not with all frogs and birds, and what should I pilot test with? Like birds, I want to start messing with this and want to start learning and start analyzing, but I don't want to get the whole thing out of the
Yes.
start. Should I
Yes.
start with birds as in the process of analyzing? And there's that thing that understore birds and high store birds, I don't know, and that's that thing on birds have two frequencies, right? Have two, like 7, they
No.
work in two of those. For me to get birds as in soundscape, should I put it in landscape mode to get everything, or there's a way for me to focus the AudioMoth in two frequencies?
Yeah, so if you want to sample, the AudioMoth, unfortunately, can only be configured for the same system to record at different times, but you cannot change the frequencies within the same. So you cannot say at 5 in the morning record these frequencies, and then at 8 or 9 record these other frequencies. So to do that, to do a change in frequencies within the same recorder, that is not possible in AudioMoth. Hopefully they're going to change that, because I don't think it should be, I think it should be something easy to do in the configuration. So if you want to do that, if you want to record bats at night and birds in the day, you need to have 2 recorders for that particular system.
Mm, cool.
Um, the recorders capture a large area. So if you set up the recorders kind of like a mid, you can like check what is the height of the trees, but you can like set it up. What I do is like set it up as high as my arms can reach. That I'm short, so so that's not very helpful. But in that way, if you get it very close to the ground, the sounds. Imagine the sounds. See, like I have another slide with this. Okay, so this ignore the components, but the sounds are it's a wave. So from the point that you are emitting the sound, imagine like a bubble growing. So if you are very close, if the bird is very close to the ground, now half of that bubble is going to be cut off. And the same happens with the recordings. If you are very close to the ground, you're only going to be able to get signals that were emitted very close to the ground. So if you put it higher up, you are going to get the signals from the bird that is close to the ground, and you're going to get this part of the signal, but also from the bird that was flying around or was on the top of the canopy, that signal is going to come down. So just the key thing is not getting it too close to the ground, unless you're only interested in the birds that are kind of like walking around. And then the other thing is, you mentioned the sites. Yes. If you have variability in your site, you have to be able to capture that heterogeneity, that variability within your ecosystem. You can, if you have edges, that is another one that is important. We know that biodiversity at edges, or the species that are singing at the edge, may not be the same. You may have a high abundance, so it might be loud, but only for particular frequencies. So that in terms of your acoustic complexity, going back to that table, in terms of the acoustic complexity, you may have only certain frequencies, only a couple of frequencies for the edge, but then you increase the frequencies as you get inside a canopy. As the recordings that you extract for the soundscape are also useful for the identification of species. So you can start, now you have these recordings, you can start using those to extract, okay, what is this soundscape, when is the peak of activity and all that. And then once the classifiers become better, or once you train those, then you can use them to extract species. It's not that you need, I think that you were asking for that, do you need one type of setting for the identification of a species and another setting for the soundscape? No, you don't need that. You can use exactly the same ones. It's just like, for this type of analysis, you don't need a lot of extra information, or a lot of experts trying to identify what species they are and train the artificial intelligence. You can do it directly.
For me, amazing. Learn a lot.
And I can share with you all this information. I can share with you the code. I don't know if you work with R. I have the code. This was part of a workshop that I did in São Paulo in July. It was a 3-day workshop where we did this with data that they were collecting, and we analyzed the data and so on. So I have. So you see, okay, exercise 1, exercise 2. So I can share all those with you. And even like this PowerPoint might not be very helpful without the context, but it has the information about each acoustic index, what it calculates, how it is calculated, and then the code runs through all these different indices.
I'd love to have those slides.
Wonderful, yes. Of course, of course. I think for that group in Brazil, they were interested in amphibians, and it was something similar. They were interested in identifying amphibians, but they were basically developing this. But they wanted, okay, how, yeah, in the meantime that we get these classifiers running, what can we do with this data? This data is very powerful. Looking at the activity of the soundscape is very powerful. And one of the things that you have to consider is that here, because you are accounting for all the sounds, and basically you're able to average these values. So um, you have to consider that each day is not the same. You may have a day that is cloudy and birds, or like the day before was raining, so now birds are more active on the next day because they couldn't have much activity the day before. And then there might be days that are very hot, so birds are not very active. So there is a lot of variability in the system, but you can extract these acoustic indices over weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks. I do a month because usually when you start removing days of rain, is more, you end up with less
Hmm.
recording. So depending on the amount of rain that you have, you may extend your season or not. And, and then you can have that average complexity. So then you are not having that influence of the very short-term variability
Hmm.
in these systems. And then compare the wetland versus the restored mangrove versus the deforested mangrove, and so on.
Let's question. Is it possible to upload those, for example, audio data to our naturalist, or like for those data to contribute to global databases and, I don't know, in a way, evidence reaching global goals, or something like including a naturalist, the beef? Is there a way this can contribute to that?
Yeah, so I think iNaturalist focuses more on species. So
Yeah.
once you go and extract like the species that you're doing for your AI training, those go there. I think Rainforest Connect had something on Soundscape. I'm not sure if they still, like with the restructuring of Rainforest Connect, I'm not sure if they still have it. One of the things that we can check is with um, what is called Wildmon is
Ah,
called.
yeah, Rodmont.
Yes, that is the kind of like
Uh-huh.
the this new organization that is working with soundscapes for conservation. We can check with them if they have a system
At the
to.
same
It's more of a global database of soundscapes
Yeah,
that will be like so important in the future, like 20 years from
exactly.
now, if you want to see how this area sounded.
Exactly. I wanted to see how can, like, locally gathered data can contribute. Like, how can we have evidence that those data that are locally gathered can contribute to global goals? Like that we can, as metadata, as getting in several places constantly, as those tiny data can contribute literally to what we're trying to reach in global goals of biodiversity. This was kind of my intention in the question, is to see if this is possible, or those data can only be used for science. But I think this is the greatest power of those databases would be, in my opinion, the proof that the collective action of biodiversity gathered data all over the world have a really huge impact on what we're trying to reach.
Yeah,
And how can we, I don't know, contribute to this global database? Because every one of those organizations here that is here in this meeting have a lot of data.
yeah.
It can be on that, they can be drones, but they have a lot. And how can we integrate this with global database so to evidence globally that, oh, these can contribute?
It would be wonderful to have that. I'm not familiar with anything, with anything like that, especially for sounds. For example, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, like that is what this GBIF, they have that for observation of species that then can be used in species modeling. Senocanto is doing that for particular species of it started with birds, but now it's any species that you can identify. But we don't have a system for soundscapes. It would be so wonderful to have that.
That is interesting.
Uh, It's I would love to have that. I would love to see, okay, how I'm measuring this soundscape now. Um, how does it compare with like 5 years from now, or like
Yeah.
maybe like in 50 years when we are like doing all these goals to 2050? Um, I'm not going to be here. Well, yes, we highlighted in 50 years. Well, in 2050, I'm going to be here. In 50 years from now, I probably won't be here. Or I will be very old and I'm not going to be doing soundscape. I will be retired in some community. Uh, but the future generations of ecologists may want to know how Massachusetts sounded at that time, and that data is going to be lost. So having these repositories, the main issue with this is the amount of space. So for smart and visionaries like David, I give it to him and saying like, okay, how we can store this data, how we can make a system where like Sinocanto, like GBF, like iNaturalist, for us to get the data there, make it public so everyone can use it for different research purposes.
We're actually talking with Rainforest Connection now. So we're exploring that option of open sourcing and revealing that data for everyone. Yeah, might loop you in as soon as possible, Flor. I think that's very aligned. We're very aligned in the thinking.
And I know that a lot of people have this data. There is Brian Pijanowski at Purdue. He has been recording soundscapes all over the world. But then it's like, okay, where is this data? How we can like make it public and available? And he had an app in the phone where people could go and record a soundscape. You are going out walking and record it, and that's and it was more for more of a um, psychoacoustics or something like that, how like soundscapes make you feel and things like that. But that's the way of recording soundscapes and like uploading them. I would love to have that.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Flor. Anyone else have any last questions before we close the session? I think Dennis just now raise your hand. If you're still here, maybe you want to ask a question. Right. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Right. Flor. Oh, okay. Flor, do you have like an email that our
Yes,
partners, if they want to connect with you or ask more questions in the future,
I
maybe?
put it here in the chat. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to help with any if anything I can. Again, I'm going to share this. This again is part of like a much larger workshop, but I can share it with Gabriel, send it to Gabriel, and Gabriel can redistribute it. I will send you the code as well. There is for example, for rain events, there is this software tool called Hard Rain that I can also, it's an R code that you can try with all the things because they are so new. Is basically trying to see what works in your area. So it's not so easy to say do this, and this. And I'm happy to collaborate, giving you suggestions, or if you have recordings that you want to share with me. I'm helpful, for example, the royal parks in Saudi Arabia. I'm helping them to analyze their soundscape as well. So they had like similar to you. They have all these recordings, and so like, well, I don't know, we don't know what to do with all these recordings. And so okay, send me the data, and we see what we can do. But the earlier the key thing is to get recordings that are consistent and in terms of the calibration of your recordings, and also to uh, think before what you are going to be doing, thinking what you want to extract. because you don't want to end up with thousands and thousands of terabytes of sounds that you may not use, or may im- make it's going to make the analysis more difficult. You might use it at some point, but if you want something like for now and see, okay, let's focus this year in these particular objectives, in what calibration we need to do with our acoustic recordings for long-term monitoring, and then start from there, and then with this more preliminary analysis, then decide on those settings to go in the future. And you already have those, so maybe with the recordings that you have and the extraction, now you can use that information to set up on the schedule the time, the gain, the frequencies, all that calibration of audio moths that you're going to be doing in the future.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Flor. If you like to ask more questions, more detailed questions, you can reach out by email, which is already copy and pasted in the chat. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. I guess this is the end. I'll see you next month during our next community call. And if you're interested with what I've mentioned about Giveth or Hypersets, please reach out to me. Cool, cool. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye,
Everyone,
everybody.
thanks, Flo. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Nice to see
Bye.
you all. Bye.
Nice to see you.